right, so we're getting ready to broadcast here live on Facebook.
Chris, is that a microphone?
Yeah. So I've had this. I was saying to Aaron too. I was saying, I've had this for a few months, but right now I'm on a laptop, so you can probably see it just because of the angle of the camera. But I've had it for a few months now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we are live, guys. So this month's meetup is going to be structured a little bit differently. It's going to be more similar to some of the other meetups you guys have traditionally attended, but we are very excited for this month's meetup for a variety of reasons. One of which is because the focus of this presentation isn't on developing specific skill sets such as underwriting deals or analyzing target markets, but rather the focus is on the mindset of the investor and power of strong relationships through networking over the course of your investing career. Today's guest presenter is Jim Biggs. He's the founder of Jiroma Enterprises and the Gop Network of apartment investors. Jim brings to us over 20 years of experience in real estate and has built an impressive portfolio of over 1,000 units. Jim will be sharing with us his real estate journey and his plans to leverage the power of the Gop Network to help shape the future of real estate investing. So Jim, thank you for coming and presenting with us today. I guess let's just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got started in real estate with Jiroma Enterprises.
So I'm 63 as of the first of this month. So the long version, we would need to schedule probably a mini series, but the short version is I still tell people I want to be a real estate investor when I grow up. And I've been saying that for 40 years. And I've been an entrepreneur for most of my life, but have always had an interest in real estate. So we moved to Florida in the early 80s, right after my first son was born. And when we landed down there, we were lucky enough that my wife was working for a large company that paid for the move, and I went down without a job, which I've never been afraid of just going, raw into a market. I've never had a problem finding a job because most of the times I created the job by opening a small business. But we got our real estate license when we got down there because we thought that was the best way to become a real estate investor. And we realized pretty quickly that was just a great way to get a sales job, to sell real estate, not necessarily a great way to learn to be an investor. And so pretty quickly, we moved on from that opportunity and started a pattern that would repeat itself throughout my adult life, which was I had a friend that I played racquetball with every morning, and he offered me a job paying 3 times what I was making to leave the real estate industry and help him open the first Acura dealership in the country. And that repeating pattern was I worked in the automobile industry for a lot of years. I owned several new car franchises. And at the end of each one of those ventures, I'd go running back to real estate, trying to become a real estate investor. And then somebody would offer me another opportunity and I would leave. So I had a really long start and stop career in real estate. But the only positive from that is that I continued to move forward and I continued to stay interested. So I obviously had a passion for it. There was something about real estate that just kept pulling me back. And so that's how I got started. And the GOB started because over that 40 years, I was constantly trying to play catch up, if you will. I was constantly looking for a shortcut to, I would leave a venture with a new car franchise and come run into real estate and say, look, I'm 5 years behind. How do I catch up? And to me, that was always find a mentor and let someone else who's already paved that path for you teach you how to do it. And so we thought that that was the best way to play catch up. But as that pattern kept repeating, we kept having more and more coaches, more and more mentors, because each time we would go back, there was something about the program that we left that either we weren't satisfied with or we felt was missing something. So we would try a different coaching program. And you've heard me say, I'm embarrassed to say how much money I've spent on coaching programs, that if I had all that money today, I'd be able to buy a really large apartment complex by myself. But the GOB network started because we felt that there was a, a big paradigm shift, not only needed, but that didn't exist. There was a model that didn't exist in the space, in particularly the commercial real estate space in multifamily. And so we started the GOB network in response to that, to answer those questions.
Great. And over the course of your investing career, I mean, obviously to get to 1,000 units is no small feat by any means. Did you take a lot of the information that you learned from these programs, or did you find yourself still stuck having to work through these, learning opportunities and lessons yourself, regardless of whether the mentorships programs that you were in provided value to you or not?
Well, I am so glad you asked that question. I do not want to um, poo-poo anybody's business model. There's a lot of very smart people in that space, and they are adding value to their students and to their mentees. But I'm going to tell you something. If you've got 30 grand, 50 grand, I was recently offered a program where they wanted me to pay 100 grand to be part of their mentoring program. Um, so if you've got that kind of money to spend, I'm going to tell you that buy an apartment building or buy some other type of real estate that you're interested in, whether that mentor you're going to is teaching single family, whether they're teaching fix and flip, or whether they're teaching buying apartments, whatever they're teaching that you want to do, instead of giving them your money, put that money in the asset. There's no one, not any teacher out there, not any mentor or coach out there that can teach you as much as that piece of real estate will teach you. And the real estate not only will be the best teacher, I don't know any mentor that when you do a really good job, maybe they give you an attaboy, but they don't send you a check in the mailbox. And the real estate will. When you do a good job, that teacher sends you a check in the mailbox. So that's the best kind of attaboy. But more importantly, they're there 365 days a year, 24/7. That apartment goes nowhere. When you do a good job, it says congratulations. But more importantly, when you do a bad job, you make a mistake, it is not only going to smack you down, it's going to be unrelenting until you get it right. It's not going to, if you come crying, it's not going to feel bad for you and let you off the hook. It's just going to keep on pressuring you to get the job done and to do it right. And you're either going to get it right or you're going to give up. And so, in that regard, I think that no one can be as good a teacher as the actual asset and the experience.
Now, you had mentioned some coaching programs in the past costing anywhere from 30, 50, $100,000. What would you say to the aspiring investor that doesn't necessarily have 50 or $100,000 to invest? So what if they have $5 or $10,000 to invest?
I have learned the most, Chris, from the mentors that I never paid a dime. The mentors that I paid 50 grand, honestly, I didn't learn anything from. So I told you I've had a lot of mentorships. Everything that I wanted to learn about how to do this business, I learned it on the very first one. I didn't need to go back and relearn it over and over and over again. So when I went back, I was always missing something. It was either capital or a partnership, a strategic partnership. And I'll tell you that you'll learn just as much, and I think personally learn more from building those partnerships by yourself, one person at a time. Now, if you get lucky and find a platform or an ecosystem or something else that will introduce you to a lot of people much faster, just like attending a conference, then I would say be careful how you do that. So some of these conferences now for a 1-day conference or 2-day conference, it's $300. Now some of them, if you get in early, they'll charge you $99. I've even seen $49. And so it'd be hard for me to say, meeting 100 people over the weekend is not worth that amount of money, because as we know, and this is guru speak, and what you've heard me say, I think there's a lot of false narratives in this business. This is one of those big false narratives in my mind, is that it only takes one relationship for this ticket to pay for itself 10 times over. And while that is a true statement, it's a false narrative in that you can meet that person without ever attending the event. How much are you charging for this event today? Is that partnership, future partnership, or connection here today? Well, very possibly it is. And you don't have to pay for it. So I think that networking, proactively networking, going to meetups, attending both in-person and virtual meetups, I think are the best ways for you to accelerate your career. But no matter how many people you meet, you have to take action. If you don't take action and act upon the fact that you met these people, then your career is not going to go anywhere anyway, and you're just throwing good money after bad. If you want to, I'm gonna say it's your network. You've heard your network is your net worth. And while I 100% believe that, I also 100% believe that you are a product of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So your network is extremely valuable, but you don't need to know thousands of people. You don't need to have thousands of people in your network. What you really need is a few very close relationships that trust you and are willing to invest alongside you. And if you can find a few of those, you can get started. If you've only got 5 grand and can find one other person who maybe has 50, then you can go out and buy a small asset. You know, you can buy a 10-unit apartment building in some of the suburbs, you know, getting outside the city central for as little as 100 grand. You could buy a 10-unit apartment complex.
So on that note, with regards to networking and learning by doing, how can the GOB network of apartment investors help people who may be interested in doing that type of stuff?
Well, if I don't want to toot our horn, but I'll toot our horn. Actually, I'll pull the string like it's a big giant trucker going by, and say that we built the GOB network and brought to it everything that we had learned from every mentor that we've had. So there's not a program out there, in my opinion, that even comes close to offering people as much as the GOB network does. And I'll tell you why. Typically, when you join a program like that, you're accessing a group of people and you're going to get so many hours of videos. Let's say for the sake of argument, you're going to get 25 hours of videos. And then you're usually going to get some type of resources, like maybe an underwriting analysis tool. And for the most part, no matter whose program you join, that's about all you get. And you might get access to 2 or 3 free events, access to a free Facebook group, and things like that. So we offer all of that. Anything that you can get from any program out there, we offer that on the GOB network. But more importantly than that, every one of these programs has a thing that I like to call the goose that laid the golden egg. And it's access to not only deals, but access to partners, access to net worth, access to liquidity. Every obstacle that prevents you from being successful as an investor, particularly an apartment investor, we provide within the GOB framework. And we borrowed our business model from the tech industry. And that's where the big paradigm shift is that we wanted to bring to the real estate space something that had never been tried. So most of these programs that are out there, you have to pay a great deal of money to participate. So we wanted to make this accessible, this information accessible in one spot for free. And so we use that model, that freemium model that you get, say, with a Google, where you get free Gmail, you get free access to the Drive, you get free access to Google Sheets and Google Docs. And so we are giving away most of the information that's on the platform. Well, at this point, we're giving away all of the information that is on the platform. And the other piece that we wanted to use is, if there are 1,000 obstacles or reasons why you might not succeed in this business, me as an individual, if I'm mentoring someone or coaching someone, I can maybe overcome 10 obstacles for you if I'm being generous with what I can do. But that still leaves you 990 other obstacles that would prevent you from actually being successful. So I think it's rather arrogant for me to stand up and say that I have all the answers and that you need to come to me and come to my conferences and pay me for all the answers, because I don't have all the answers and I can't be available 24/7. But what I can do is use a model from the tech industry that everybody's familiar with. It's a crowdsourced hive mind model, which you see illustrated with Wikipedia. So the power of Wikipedia is it doesn't depend on an individual. It doesn't even depend on 100 individuals. It depends on absolutely anyone that is interested in uploading an article can do that. And that's also its biggest shortcoming, because anyone can upload an article. It doesn't need to be accurate, it doesn't need to be factual. But the reason it works is that everyone is an editor. Everyone is responsible for making sure that the information there is accurate and that it's useful information. So we wanted to take that information or that idea and put it on the GOB network. So if we have 990 other obstacles to overcome, then we need 990 other solutions from 990 other investors. So the idea of that hive mind and having enough people to reach out to solve any issue, we wanted in the platform, because we don't believe we're the sharpest tool in the shed. But we do believe that there's already in the GOB network enough of a hive mind to overcome any obstacle that is preventing you from being successful in this business. And then the last piece that we built the network on is we wanted it to be open source. And the reason we wanted it to be open source is that that's the participation piece. So if you're familiar with the Linux operating system, any programmer can go into Linux and pull out one line of code and make a tiny change to that line of code. And by doing that, makes the entire system better. It makes it faster, more efficient, everything better. And so instead of being Microsoft Windows, which maybe has 10,000 programmers that have to do things the Microsoft way, Linux took a different approach. And when both of them started about the same time, by the way, Linux and Windows. And for the first decade, maybe even the first 2 decades, no one thought Linux had a chance. The guys at Microsoft certainly weren't afraid. They thought, okay, this is some nerd in his basement trying to produce, what we're doing professionally with all of our paid programmers. But I'll remind you that the World Book Encyclopedia and the Encyclopedia Britannica thought exactly the same thing about Wikipedia. And Wikipedia became the largest repository of knowledge in the history of mankind. And Linux is the most popular operating system in the world. Now, what we see in the United States, the front view of what we see is Windows. But even Windows today, and almost every large tech company, is built on open source. Over half of all of Windows and Microsoft's programming is open source, built on open source. And people kind of have this question in your mind, well, why would anyone do this for free? Why would you build Linux up for free? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. Imagine if you're that programmer at Microsoft and you have this, what you think is a brilliant idea that you can add so much value to Microsoft. And your boss says, that's not going to work. That we don't do it that way. Just follow the system. It needs to be the Microsoft way. Well, that guy can go home at night and put that brilliant idea into Linux. And when he does, not only does he get credit for it, but it gives him a strong sense of um, fulfillment and pride in what he's doing. So it allows him to express himself. It allows him to create and be something bigger that is not constrained within the Microsoft way. So I want that kind of ingenuity, that kind of creativity, that kind of collaboration. And so that was the last leg of trying to build the GOB network.
I love that you made that analogy to having an open source platform. You know, when April, Alex, and I started up this meetup back in August of last year, what we really wanted to do is we wanted to provide a platform that gave all of the people that are in the group an opportunity to educate themselves without having to charge them anything other than maybe a beer when we were meeting up in person. In this particular case, how would the GOB platform help investors, like in terms of their education? Would it be an opportunity to learn how to underwriting? Would it be an opportunity to learn how to capital raise? What are the different types of things that the GOB network would offer?
So aside from all of the resources that we're providing, so as an example, let's take underwriting as an example. Most people, you have to go out and buy some kind of underwriting model. Even on Bigger Pockets, which almost everyone gets started by going through Bigger Pockets. In the very early days, Brandon and the guys over there put together a real basic tool for underwriting, very, very basic. But then as they started to build on it, and other people that became part of that network brought some more brain power to utilizing a little bit of that hive mind to create a better underwriting tool, they started charging for it. And so if you're in the apartment business, which, most of our experience is in apartments. So if you're in the apartment side, you're going out, you're getting that. If you have 30 grand in your pocket to give to a guru, he'll give you an underwriting tool. But in reality, most of those underwriting tools are still lacking. They're not as good as they could be. They're not as powerful as the ones that are being used on Wall Street or in private equity or at a family office. But we provide not a tool for free. We probably have 12 different models, underwriting models that you can use for free. And you pick which one you like the best. You pick which one suits your understanding the best. And we have some on there that are very, very simple. We have some on there that are very, very complicated. And our goal is to one day aggregate all of these into an all-encompassing model that allows you to start off knowing almost nothing, just input a few fields and it gives you an answer. But as you get better, we'll introduce a new idea. So if you can imagine like a bunch of different tabs along the, like having a tab open in Windows, and each tab that you go to builds on the last one until you get all the way out here to the end, and you're underwriting at the level a REIT is underwriting to, or a private equity firm is underwriting to, or a family office is underwriting to. And so we offer all of those things on the platform for free. But in addition to that, we hold private in-group Zoom meetings. So for underwriting, we have a 1-hour session on early Thursday evenings. And it's one particular style where it's one person volunteers to show their underwriting, and then the rest of the group tries to poke holes in it and say, well, why did you make that assumption? And where did you come up with that information for that cell? And we do that as not a way of picking on the person, but as a way to help that person solidify their thought process and make sure that they have good, solid underpinnings to their underwriting. Well, I found that on Facebook, or I found that on Zillow, or I found that on US censusdata.gov. So it helps you become a better underwriter. Then one of our members has been putting on a very intensive 3-hour underwriting demonstration every Saturday for like the last 2 years. And he takes a deal, He sends all that information to you ahead of time so that you can download it and start trying to underwrite it yourself. But more importantly, so that you know what's going to be covered. And he will literally go step by step from start to finish in that 3 hours and put all the information from the OM, the T12, and the rent roll into the model, and then tell you why it is being done the way he's doing it. And we've got, when he joined the platform, he uploaded, at that time, I think it was 18 months or 20 months, or 20 months of episodes. So every 12 months, there's 52 episodes. So you could sit and just watch Charles underwrite on video. And if you want to, what do we call that with Netflix? Binge watch. You could binge watch underwriting for probably a week and still not get to the end of all of the videos that we have uploaded onto the platform. And all of that's free. And so you can become literally a better underwriter than 90% of the people in the apartment industry just by getting on the platform and following, those underwriting things. And then we have a meeting that's a mastermind meeting that meets once a week, where if you're in a deal and you have a problem, you can come to the mastermind and have people help you solve that problem. Or if you have a deal that you've been operating for a while, like when COVID hits, and it's like, okay, guys, what are we going to do about COVID? You can meet with other people who are in the business, doing this business, that are all there to try to help you so that you don't have to do it by yourself. It's not a decision you have to make by yourself. Then we also have a capital raising meeting to try to help each of us become better capital raisers, because ultimately this entire thing is about being able to raise capital. If you can't do that, or find somebody to partner with who can do that, you'll never be successful in the business. And so we meet to try to push each other, see what each other is doing, and share information. This is what I'm doing, and here's how I'm doing it. Here, if you want to take some of my ideas and repurpose them and put them in your own voice, then we do this. We share and collaborate on things like this. So those are a couple of examples.
Perfect. So we are going to open it up for some Q&A here in just a little bit. I did have just one more question just to leave us all with, and that is with regards to the mindset of abundance. You had mentioned that the GOB network, you don't charge anything. You guys are an open source platform. You're looking to raise a bunch of the people up who are members. How does that translate to the mindset of abundance, and how does that mindset of abundance relate to real estate investing in general?
Well, I constantly hear people that get into the apartment investing through a conference or through a coach or through a guru, that they can't believe how generous everyone is, how much they give. And while that is true compared to most other industries, because quite frankly, this is a team sport. It's very hard to do this by yourself. You have to network, you have to find other people to help you do the things that you might not be great at. And so it starts with everyone believing that they have tapped into this abundance mentality. And there is a lot of abundance mentality. And all of us want to believe that we are part of that abundance mentality. And it means, the book, if you haven't read The Go Giver, exemplifies that idea of the abundance mentality, that the more you give, the more you'll get. But what we find is that there's a limit to everyone's abundance mentality. And you usually bump up against that when you start to find out how personal something can be to an individual. So it's in our human nature to protect what's ours. It's within our human nature to protect, if you want the caveman analogy, protect our cave. It's in our best interest. It's in to protect our family first, ourself first, our children first, and also in regard to a broader sense, anything that we've worked hard to build, a business, an idea, a deal that you're working on. Everyone's afraid to share because they're afraid they'll lose. And so that is when you usually bump up against the limits of a person's abundance mentality. So for me, I told you I kept going back to the gurus over and over again. But the second time I went back, it was because I had a deal and I was looking for help with that deal, either a partnership or capital. And I told you about the goose that laid the golden egg. Well, the goose that laid the golden egg, just to kind of let the cat out of the bag, is a database. The most important thing any of those gurus have is their database. Because when you join a program, typically they want to know what is your net worth, what is your liquidity, what is that, how much do you make per year, and how much do you have to invest. And so with that information, anyone that brings them a deal, so in the apartment world, you have to have a net worth that is equal to what you're trying to borrow. You have to have 10% of that in liquid cash. And then you also have to have sponsorship experience, meaning that you can't get the loan if you haven't already had the loan. So which is a conundrum. So how do you do that? Well, you have to bring somebody on the team who already has the loan. It's the chicken and egg piece. And so you have to have all those things. And with that database, that guru, that mentor, that coach has the answer for every one of those. So he will not share that with you. And how do I know that? Because I've asked at least half a dozen times with half a dozen mentors that I've paid a lot of money to try to gain access to that list. Well, at the GOB network, that list is one of the very first things that we share with you so that you can look at the list and find the people that you need, whether it's net worth, liquidity, if you're looking just for LP partners or joint ventures, boots on the ground, whatever you're looking for. So we thought when we started it that we were going to test the limits of the abundance mentality. So we decided we're going to give away as much as we can possibly give away and see if that abundance comes back to us. And I can tell you that it absolutely helps.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for the information, Jim. That was really helpful to all of us. We're going to open up now for some Q&A if anybody had any questions that they'd like to ask Jim before we go into breakout sessions.
April is saying something, but April's on mute.
Oh, hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so what I was saying was going back to that abundance mentality. When we first started this meetup, that was one of the first things that we brought up. And when we learned about the GOB network, I was very much in awe at how helpful everyone was. And when you were talking about that 3-hour intensive underwriting course, I happened to be able to go to one of those, and there was investors who were very, very experienced and investors who were brand new. And Daryl, the moderator and the person going through the underwriting, when someone was asking a question who obviously was very, very new to underwriting, he made it a point to answer those questions and said, hey, I'm going to probably want you on my team one day. And it was really inspiring to kind of see this guy who was so high level bring himself down and say, it's okay, we've all been there. And it was a very comfortable space, and it made you feel like, oh my gosh, I could probably take down an apartment complex because of this type of mentality that they're sharing with me. It's within reach. So it's just inspiring to be a part of something like that.
So, one of the things that I find very, very interesting is most of us start at the same spot. Most of us, we decide we want to become a real estate investor, and we don't know how to do that, but we do know how to buy a home. So we start off just trying to duplicate that process. We're going to buy a single family home, but we're going to rent it out instead of living in it. Or maybe we we've done okay in our job and we're going to move up, and instead of selling the home, we're going to buy a new one and rent out the old one. But most of us start off in that single family space. But what you find is the longer you're in it, that almost everyone starts to graduate once they reach a certain level into apartment buildings. So they'll start off and say, okay, I want to own 100. This was my goal. I want to own 100 single family homes with at least $100 cash flow on each one. And when I get there, I'll have some of them paid off, and that'll be my retirement. That'll be my nest egg. And you find out pretty quickly that not only is it hard, it is a full-time job, but the being a single family investor, most of the time you're everything. You're the property manager, you're the maintenance guy, you're acquisitions, you're the credit, you're every piece. And in most of the apartment deals that we work on, we're only a very small piece. We have other people that take on all those other roles and responsibilities, and it allows us to grow bigger and to grow faster. And that's what everybody usually is looking for. When we start this, I think almost universally, what we're all looking for is passive income. We're looking to create generational wealth. And so the answer really is, what's the best way to do that? The most efficient way to do that. And that's why most people will generally start to graduate to larger assets, because they find out that it's just, especially if you're working a W-2 job, it is extremely hard to build your portfolio of single family homes. Extremely hard, especially if you're buying some that maybe fit that $5,000 budget. So it's an older property that needed a lot of work. And so now you're into a burr and having to fix it up. And that can only go so long before you either start hiring other people, or you lose the relationship you used to have with your wife and your kids, or you have a mental breakdown, from the stress. So people will start to graduate. What I'm trying to tell people is, look, if you're going there, if you're going on that journey, you don't need to start where you are. That anyone can start and start buying much larger assets right out of the box. You just need to figure out what you're good at and find other people to partner with that are good at the other pieces. You don't need to be all things to all people on every deal, and just, concentrate on your strength.
Aaron, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess my question would be kind of on that line. How can a young or kind of inexperienced member bring some value to the network?
So that's kind of we tell everyone, look, it's a freemium model, but there is a cost to join the GOB network. And the cost is that we're only looking for go-givers. We're only looking for like-minded people that will leave more than they take. And so we are looking for people that are active participants, that are trying to succeed at this. We're not looking for, casual, I'm interested, let me just hang around a little bit. No, we want people in there that are trying to build some passive income, trying to build some generational wealth. So what does that look like? Somebody who's never done a deal, not even bought a single family house, just graduated high school and are looking for their first apartment. How could they add value? There's a million ways for anyone to add value. So we have a Slack channel and we have a Google Drive. The Google Drive is where the GOB network resides. That's where all of the tools and resources reside. And I built the foundational pieces of that. But everyone who is on the GOB network is constantly uploading more information to that drive. So that and by doing so, they are participating, they are giving back, they're adding value. So for instance, you may find that when we started with the Chicago market, okay, and we wanted to make investing in remote markets an easier thing to do. So one of the things that when you join and you're in a market that no one else has joined from yet, you're the first one from Utah, then one of the things you can do is we'll open up a Utah folder. Just by creating the folder and starting to dump things into it, you're adding value. So whatever knowledge you have right now, you can add value by bringing that knowledge to the platform. Another way to add value is participate on the Slack channel. That's where we talk about the platform. That's where we talk about all the stuff that's on the Google Drive. It's where we mingle with each other and get to know each other better just by participating, just by answering a question, introducing yourself, being available to be boots on the ground in your local market. You're adding value to the platform. There is so many ways to add value, and just participation, whatever that looks like, is adding value. So there's no one that doesn't have value to add.
Got it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Looks like Ram has a question here. He had a question for Jim. He said, Jim, when you first started, did you work a W-2 job while on your journey?
Yeah, so I told you that's been a 40-year journey, and I've always had a job. Most of them were of my own making. I told you I've owned a lot of businesses. I never wanted to work for the man, but I've also had a lot of setbacks in my life. I've had a lot of failure in my life. And, why did I own so many different new car franchises? Why didn't I stick with one? Well, because I found out I had a secret power. And I jokingly tell everyone, my secret power is I'm really good at picking bad partners. And so I've had a lot of partnerships go bad. I've had a lot of businesses that did not succeed the way that I wanted them to. And so every time one of those things would come to an end, I'd go running back to real estate. And so it's been in and out that I've been on that journey, Ryan. And remind me again, specifically, the question was
if you just maintained your W-2 position throughout your real estate investing journey.
The piece that I was leading up to. I finally did, by the way. After one of those failures, my wife asked me a very hard question, which was, what if this never succeeds? Are we going to be poor? Are we going to be homeless? When we moved to Miami the first time in the early 80s, Miami Beach, for you who may not know or haven't been there, it was mainly homeless people, mainly old homeless people living on Miami Beach from the late 70s through the mid 80s. And it wasn't until Miami started really putting a concerted effort and you had some investors come and buy some of that, what would be considered today opportunity zone, and start to put money back into those assets, that it started becoming what it is today. And she was afraid she'd end up like that. And that was when you're a father and a husband and you feel the weight of those obligations, it can be devastating. And she had always supported me in every endeavor that I had done. But that was a question that I felt I couldn't leave unanswered. And so I finally did take a W-2 job just to secure a retirement that would allow a safety net. And I chose a company that allowed me to get a retirement based on the hours worked, not on the years of service. And so you had to be there at least 12 years. But after 12 years, you could take advantage of the retirement. And that's what I did. And I tell people that I got a 30-year retirement in 12 years. And how did I do that? I worked 16-hour days at minimum. And I did that taking 1 or 2 days off a week or a year. So I'd work 6 months, take a day off, and work another 6 months, take a day off. And I didn't do that for the entire 12 years, but I did do that for 8 of those years. And then the last 4 years, I started scaling back because I was starting to get the itch again to be an entrepreneur and go back to real estate. And so the last 4 years that I was there, I started taking long weekends at least once a month. And I would fly to Texas because that's where I wanted to invest. And I would spend time there, a 4-day weekend, meeting people, going to conferences, meeting brokers, property managers, touring properties, trying to build all of my network in order to be successful at this business. And I'll tell you that that's another secret power that the GOB network has. I spent $4 or $5 grand every weekend I went down there for 18 months in a row. And with the GOB network, I can shortcut that into 1 day. And the reason I can do that is with the Golden Goose. I told you the Golden Goose was a database. One of the things on the database is, where do you live and what markets do you invest in? And are you willing to be boots on the ground? Another question is, are you a GP, general partner, or are you an LP, a limited partner? Do you want to do joint ventures? So those questions allow you to build out a remote market and meet all of the people that you want to meet without ever leaving your living room. So I can pull open the database, and if I already have a deal, I can just search for the limited partners, the people that don't want to be the general partner. They don't want to do all the work. What they want to do is make their money work harder than they do. And so people that want to be passive investors, you can reach out to, with your deal. The same thing, if you have a deal and you don't feel that you're strong enough yet to take it down by yourself, then you can look for all the people who are identifying themselves as general partners. You can, if you need a KP, a key principal, to sign the loan and bring their balance sheet, you can search for the people that have KP by their name. So we open up that goose that laid the golden egg to you right out of the gate.
All right, I think we have time for maybe one more question. Anybody going once, going twice, 3 times?
I'll shoot.
All right,
Yeah.
JV, what's up?
So I don't know if you had experience with this, but there's a lot of talk of like, hey, I'd like to go on this with my friend, or hey, let's get our family involved with this. And you go in a deal and the deal goes bad. Have you found that it ruins the relationship with that family or the friend and now things are awkward, or is there a way to patch that up? Or is it even a bad idea to just go in with that?
Yeah, it absolutely can create a lot of tension and strife with family and friends. But what I believe is because you went into it unprepared, there are certain things you can't foresee. So no one could foresee COVID. But I lost a lot of money last year on a deal because of COVID. And when I say a lot, I mean 6 figures a lot. And the reason I lost all that money is I decided to do the right thing. So we were raising money for a deal. And when we lost the deal, we could have said, okay, to all the investors, well, we lost the deal. So we all were in this together. We were all taking this risk together. But instead of doing that, we returned all of the investor money and we took that hit on ourselves. And we did that because we wanted to keep those relationships. We knew that we were going to need them again. So I think that the better prepared you are, the better you are at finding key partnerships so that you have someone else looking over your shoulder. One of the things I love about the hive mind idea is that if I'm an underwriter and I'm still relatively new at underwriting these assets, whether it's a single family house or an apartment building, there's so much I need to know about not only the asset, but about the market area and about a lot of assumptions that you have to make about employment and growth and so many other things, that if I have 2 or 3 people underwriting the same deal, because we're acting as a hive mind, we're all looking at this deal. So 2 or 3 different people underwrite the same deal, we can come together and compare our underwriting. And like we said earlier, poke holes in each other's underwriting. And if we can combine those into one piece of underwriting that we agree on, then that underwriting is going to be so much more powerful, so much more accurate, and have a much higher degree of success than if we had underwritten that and taken on all the responsibility just on ourselves. Again, I really believe in that hive mind, that I want to lean on a lot of other people on my team to make sure that those investments don't go bad, because we don't want to, especially when we're first getting started and we're raising money mostly from family and friends, we don't want to lose those relationships. But you don't want to lose any relationship with a passive investor ever. And so you need to start off with that mindset that you have a fiduciary relationship with your passive investors, that you owe them your confidence, that you're going to do everything with their interest first and your interest next.
On that note, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I remember hearing of Joe Fairless encountering a similar situation as you did, Jim. And I think at the end of it, he ended up paying his investors something to the amount of like $8 million out of his own account or something like that, just so that he can keep those relationships going, despite the fact that the deal didn't go through as planned.
That I'll say also to that, if you're going to be that kind of sponsor, start small. So if you have a mistake, it doesn't kill you. You can recover from it. Some people want to jump into this and right away buy an apartment that's 100 units or 200 units. And you can do that. It is entirely possible to do that. But I really like the model of starting small and growing exponentially, because if you've got to raise money for a 10-unit apartment building and you need to raise 100 grand, 200 grand, that's a lot easier than having to raise 2 million for a 100-unit building. A lot easier. It's everything about that 100-unit building is going to be exponentially harder in regard to raising the capital and also magnifying your mistakes. So when you're learning, minimize that pain. So when you make a mistake, make it a small mistake that you can overcome. If I'm going to make a mistake and learn from it, I'd rather do that on a 10-unit with 2 or 3 investors than on a 100-unit where it's with 50 investors. And I'd rather piss off 1 or 2 people and not have them invest with me again than to piss off 50, because one thing you'll find out very quickly in the apartment industry, it's a very small world, and word travels very quickly. So if you make too many big mistakes, it can put you out of the game.
All right. So at this point in time, we're going to start going to breakout sessions. But before we do that, April, Alex, and I just wanted to first say that our number one priority in starting this meetup 7 months ago was to provide as much value and education to all of our members. And because of that, we wanted to announce that moving forward, Windy City REI is going to be the official Chicagoland affiliate of the GOB network. So doing so will give everyone on here that's interested an opportunity to expand their network outside of the Chicagoland area and meet with other investors across the United States that are making things happen in the multifamily space. So we're still going to be hosting our monthly meetup just as planned on the last Sunday of every month, as well as bring on guests that can still provide valuable information that's specific to the Chicago market. But now everyone will also have the added benefit of building your network to expand your potential investment opportunities to other markets as well. So I think that's just something that will continue to help us grow. We have big plans for this meetup, and we appreciate everyone here so far who has been able to make it and support us, especially from the very beginning. But that's definitely one thing that we think will be able to help our group continue to grow. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and put you guys into breakout sessions. Give me 1 second here.